So welcome everybody to another episode of PRGirl Talk. Super excited today. We have a new guest with us. Her name is Deja. Cromartie is your last name, Deja?
Yep, you said it right. Yep, Cromartie, yep.
I love it. You know, because I also have one of those names that people butcher all the time. So
Yes.
I put a lot of, thought into how my tongue works when I say people's names. So let me give the people an idea of who you are. So you're the CEO of Deluxe Media Agency. And specifically your mission is like helping mission-focused clients and brands get featured as thought leaders.
Yes.
I thought that was super interesting. You've been running your agency for over 7 years, and you've worked with brands like the NAACP, Young Gets It Done, UNICEF, blackdoctors.org. You've done a lot of stuff. This is great. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we have Alex with us today from California. What part of Cali are you in? You're at home?
At home in San Diego.
Okay. I love how you're giving us different backgrounds every time we record. I was trying to do that and be creative with people, but I was like, you know what? Like, this is my seat today. But we've seen like your fun room, your bedroom. I love it.
Yeah, we've been bored, so we've moved rooms and furniture like every weekend. So don't be surprised. We move shit around here.
Yes, I love it. So, one of the things, so Deja, when I was doing some research on you, one of the things that I thought was super interesting, before we get into today's topic, is the fact that you also create content for other publicists, right? So like you're creating a lot of educational stuff, things that help other publicists who are up and coming in their professional game, learn how to do the game that you ladies play better. I wanted to just explore, like, when did that start for you? How did you know that was a good idea? Because now we're seeing a lot more publicists start to do that and become content creators themselves. But just explain, and this might even be a selfish thing for me, but explain your journey in creating and getting to that space of creating content for other publicists.
Yeah, sure. So how I got into the space of creating content that serves publicists and business owners too was honestly from my mentors. So I'm very big on mentorship. I love mentoring people. I love mentoring young women, young men that are, aspiring to work in the communication space. And I just thought like how I like to learn is that I need to see things. I need examples. So honestly, I started creating these things for them. And then it just became other people got wind of what I was creating. And then I just released it to the public. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to put it on my website because other people were asking for these resources too. So that's how I got started with doing that.
Yeah. And so as an agency owner, and Alex will speak to this too, having had Chrome City, do you find that it's like, this is a business question, like it's a source of revenue too? So like you're diversifying like your revenue stream as
Yeah, absolutely. Because, we always hear about like building wealth and you need to build like 7 streams. I'm nowhere close to that yet, but yeah, I do like having that element of passive income. And I'm always thinking of ways to be able to leverage my time better so that I'm not having to be like hands-on with everything, but I still can help people and service people because there's, as you can imagine, a large market for people that are into like self-education and doing things themselves. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so with Alex, with your new venture, it'll be interesting to see because you also were like really diversified, right? Like your PR firm wasn't just doing PR services, right? You guys were offering other things that made sense within the realm of like your team's capabilities and your capabilities to diversify those revenue streams. I think any service business should like figure out other things, Have you and your new partner thought about some of the diversification in the revenue streams for the new business that you've launched?
Well, I mean, I think at my core, I'm still consulting. So definitely for the beauty business, which is like so different than PR business. But I clapped when she said 7 years because I feel like that's like, it's like, and even in a relationship, like 7 years is like, great.
Yes.
That's the stuff. I mean, I think at the 7-year mark, I mean, I'm right around 7 years right now. And it's a journey. So
Congrats.
just wanted to like honor you for having hit that mark, because that's a huge mark. I think a lot of people say that once you hit past 5, it's rough, but it's worth it. But to get to 5 is really hard. So yeah, I mean, for PR, it's like if somebody's not picking up the story and someone's handing you a check every month on a retainer and you're not getting a hit, you can't expect that person with your morals to like keep writing you a check and be like, we're still pitching. Like, to me, that always felt icky. But I needed the money. I had a staff and there's payroll. And so we had to diversify, because there'd be certain clients that, you know, could take off with the wind doing PR and we pitched it a little bit. And then there'd be other clients that we pitched really hard and nobody would pick up. And so you have to kind of adjust the services you offer based on, solely for me, on my success or my failures. Like, shit, we're really not getting any PR. I'll write a content calendar. Let's bring these stories that we've been developing from the PR standpoint and spread them all over your social. Or, you know, there's a lot of local businesses in your area that could really utilize your product, whether it's a bar or whatever. Let's send an email out to them, and we'll spend the next 3 months with that retainer money, building a database, reaching out, and we become like a sales force. I believe in some ways that was to the demise of the business in a way, because we did have our hands in so many pots that it was really tough. But at the same time, I always felt like when somebody wrote me a check that I deserved that check, because I diversified as best I could to make sure that their dollar, that I valued their dollar, you know, to pay me. So with the beauty business that I just started, it's such a different beast. I don't even know that it truly pertains to a PR conversation, but we definitely have meeting notes and I treat it like a client. And in the meeting notes is like influencer relations, B2B marketing, you know, email marketing, digital marketing, PR, social. So you kind of always have to have your hands in all of those pots for sure.
Yeah. Deja, I'm interested in, you know, like the majority of the publicists I know from just even creating the PRGirl brand, and now all the lovely ladies and a couple of guys who know who I am on Instagram because of this, we tend to focus on like all the sexy parts of PR, right? Like fashion, beauty, lifestyle, like I'm hanging out with like the Fallons and the Alexes and the Nolitas of the world, right?
Right.
So just to give our audience like a little taste of the types of conversations you have to have with different media outlets to get your brands and your clients, you know, talked about in the media. What would you say is the biggest difference between like the fashion, beauty, lifestyle piece and the conversation that's had there versus this mission-driven piece that you're focused on?
Yeah, so early in my career, I was doing a little bit of beauty, so I can definitely paint the picture for you. So I like to say, when you're pitching like a beauty or a fashion brand, like you have a product. Journalists love products. Journalists love nice looking things. Like the presentation is so important. Versus when I'm pitching something that's like more so a concept, like I'm really selling like what that concept is, that ideology is, and is it relevant to what's going on in the current news cycle. So is really literally product or like idea pretty much is the way I would explain it.
Yeah. No, that's a great way to think about it. And right, I can't even imagine, like I know for a lot of the publicists that I know personally, yes, the news cycle is a huge part of like why or how, right? You should get the media to care about what it is that you're talking about. 2020 and the news cycle that has been 2020, like, I can't even think about how, I mean, every day it's different. I mean, even if you're just following like Trump's tweets, every day there's something different. And I'm not, it's my husband. He's like my source for Trump. He's like, you want to hear what Trump tweeted today? And I'm like, no, I actually don't. Please don't read it to me. But yeah, I feel for all the publicists out there who have to keep up with the news in a different way than like we as just people who live in this country have to keep up with the news and incorporate it into the day-to-day flow of, you know, working for your clients. Cause I can't, it's like, it's consumed with, you know.
But it's also, I think because it's such a like thick, tough, complex time, it's a beautiful time to have mission-driven messaging, right? Like whatever Deja is working with, I think people are yearning for that because it makes, I mean, I'm sure to receive a pitch from her, it's just like, Thank God. I didn't, oh, where'd she go? She's coming back.
No, we lost Deja.
I thought it froze for a second.
Oh man. All right, we'll edit all this out.
Hi.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know how I got kicked off. Sorry about that.
No problem. It's Zoom. It's not you.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Anyway, Alex was saying that it's probably almost like a breath of fresh air for the media to get a pitch from you in such like horrible news time. So go ahead, Alex.
I was just saying that when you have a mission-driven concept like Deja's clients, I could imagine, I don't work in that industry, that the reporters are like welcoming, you know, information that is either feel good or moving forward in the evolution of our culture or our society. Even though it's not as, you know, as we think they're covering more negative than positive, I still think that there's like that beautiful opportunity with the clients that you even mentioned that are serving such a greater purpose that we're all wanting to hear more about things like that, you know?
Are you finding that, Deja?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Are you finding that to be the case with your clients?
Yeah. I think for the most part, because, you know, it's just such a specific beat, they're definitely more receptive. I don't have people that are like, you know, versus like with beauty or fashion, like, you know, people have certain like tastes or styles, or like you have to remember, like, for instance, I was pitching a lot of like hair care stuff. So certain journalists, you got to remember what kind of hairstyle do they have? Do they use these types of products? Like, it's really like niche, like super niche, versus this is just kind of like, okay, I know for the most part like what their stances are on certain things, so I know like overall they'll be receptive to what I'm pitching them. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, speaking of the news cycle, I high level, when I was planning for this episode, I was like, okay, I want to talk about the fact that as a collective, as women, there are certain topics that we tend to not talk about. And I'm like, the year of 2020 is really, for me, just about how much more unapologetic can I be, honestly. So I was like, oh, you don't want us to talk about all these things? Well, I'm gonna talk about all things.
I love it.
And so 2020 is the year to blow the lid off of all of that shit, because there's no.
Yeah. And it's all the stuff that matters to us, honestly, the most. Like, it's life-changing to women the most. And I made a short list, and it's not even complete. Like, even starting with pregnancy,
I want to the list, because I have so many things in my head too that I'm like, we don't talk about this.
Yeah. So pregnancy and childbirth and like that, right? Before you experience that as a woman, we tend to just like, I don't want to hear about it. But after you go through it, the number one thing everyone says is, I wish that someone would have told me or shared their experience with me, et cetera, et cetera. Really life-changing things. Religion, obviously, politics, racism, sexism, vaginas. Like, I remember even how it's like weird to some people that I've taught my 2 daughters the word vagina. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Really?
They have, I would rather them call it than come up with some fluffy, like, weird word for it. When else, no one's gonna know what they're talking about. And God forbid, you know, somebody touches them or does something, I need them to be able to say, that stranger touched me in my vagina, and go get them. And so anyway, I'm like, I'm over the topics we're not supposed to talk about. With it being such a heavy, thick political season, I'm like, we can talk about vaginas all day, but we should probably talk about
vaginas would be the lightest thing we could talk about now.
Right.
Exactly.
It's so funny. Side note, I told my husband the other day, I was like, remember when the worst thing Trump did was like brag about grabbing women by the vaginas?
Yeah, this is what he said.
This will be over. Like, there's no way in hell he'll become president, because no man alive can brag about that and like be put in a place of power. We were wrong. So anyway, that's why let's talk politics, right? So the first thing I want to get into is even this idea of, why is it that we, like, as women, or even as a society, like, shield ourselves from having a intelligent, smart, you know, coexisting conversation about politics? Like, what do you guys think is even the source of that? I'll start with Deja, and then we'll go to Alex.
So I think the source of why women don't usually feel comfortable about politics, I think especially I'm imagining it's more so like in the workplace and things like that. It's just, we don't want to like be judged, or we don't want to, you know, be perceived. I feel like politics is a part of a person's like identity. So like you associate who a person is based on what their viewpoints are. So if someone doesn't agree with your viewpoints, or, you know, it's completely opposite of your viewpoints, they're probably judging you or looking at you a little bit differently. So I think it's just a mechanism to, you know, protect yourself, because everybody, it's safe to be neutral. Basically, it's safe to be neutral. It's safe to not, you know, teeter on the fence of one side or the other. So that's why I think that is.
Mm-hmm. Alex, what do you think?
Well, the plain and obvious answer for me is the patriarchy, right? Women aren't supposed to open their mouths. They're not supposed to share their identities and how they identify, either sexually, politically, religiously. It's just like just be quiet and do what you're told, I think is where like the root of that comes from. And I think that pre-social media, I think everyone respected, you know, the dinner table conversations that were off the table, which were politics and religion. But, you know, once we crept into social media, and remember for a while, because I think we're all kind of around the same era, you would never have someone from work follow your social. Remember when that was a thing where it was really just your friends?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it became like that trickle down where like you're like my boss, or like, you know, my aunt, and then it just became like a free-for-all where it was like, I don't even have a private, and here's my political meme. You know, I post like political memes like every day. I'm like, this motherfucker, get him out. You know, I mean, now it's like the gloves are off. So I do think that it's changed a lot. We're not in the workplace right now for the most part, so it's like we've almost been given this weird like free pass to be like, well, I'm not in the office talking, I don't have to put that shit all over social. So I don't know, I think it's evolved a lot. I think that whole like dinner time, family time, don't talk about religion and politics, it's like, fine, I won't talk about it, but I'm gonna post all over social about it, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a combination of what the two of you said. You know, it's like the patriarchy really is like, you know, the foundation of a lot of why we think things are the way that they are, or how we think things should be. And that directly bleeds into, in my opinion, why we find ourselves in the situation that we're in right now politically, right? So like the idea that women have been shut up and shut down for such a long time in our thoughts and opinions made it so that a lot of women either didn't vote or voted for Trump because that's what their husband was doing or something like that, which is like, just, I don't know. It's like makes me want to vomit, honestly. Like, but yeah, it's like, I wonder if people see the direct correlation to the fact that there hasn't been in our history enough communication and conversation around politics, especially amongst women, and where women find ourselves today politically, still fighting some just, you know, human rights.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, one thing that I thought about when you said this conversation and this topic, and it's a little bit off topic in the political realm, but I just think that it was so, I was taken aback, but when Chrissy Teigen just posted all about the stillbirth, or like the death of her 20-week baby, at first I was like, why would she do that? I was like so shocked, and I was like, oh my God, they're just like taking a picture of her in the hospital. But then I saw so many women commenting that were like, dude, I went through this and like had no one, like, I just like that whole thing with your body and being shamed, like it gives me chills. But like, I just have to say kudos to her for like, that's so personal, and for her to put that out there. The amount of comments I saw of women that were like, thank you, we just went through this, we thought we weren't even going to be able to get through it, and could support her back, was just phenomenal. So I just wanted to say that because I thought that was a great example.
Thank you for bringing that up, because it falls right under the stuff that women don't talk about, right? And I follow her too, and I followed that whole journey, and I had the same like emotional experience with it, where I was watching her, and it went from we're in the hospital, blood transfusion, to like my husband came in the kitchen and was like, Chrissy Teigen had a miscarriage. I was like, no, she didn't. She went to the hospital for a blood transfusion. Like, I was like correcting him, and I was like, oh my God.
Right.
So, like, he found out, so the whole world knows. And I was just like, as a mom, as a wife, as someone who walks this balance of sharing my life with people, but also wanting to maintain some level of, personalness in my life. I struggled with it, but I ended up exactly where you ended, Alex. Like, it's her story, and in the braveness of her sharing it, she touched so many women's hearts and lives and helped them heal through their grieving of losing a baby. Now, I take it a step further and go, I just hope that she's getting that for herself too. Because
well, I was going to say, I think the reason that so many of us don't share private things like that is because we don't want pity. Like, I can guarantee before she posted it, she's like, I want girls to feel empowered or know, like, me too. But also, I don't want people every time they see me to be like, I'm so sorry. Like, oh God, we all hate the pity, right? We're strong bitches and we don't need that shit. And like, it's not balance.
Right.
Yeah. And she did say that in one of her posts, because people were like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry before she lost the baby. And she was like, guys, like, don't pity me. That makes me feel weird and like awkward. I'm just sharing because this is what I do. So yeah. I wish I could be like, oh, Chrissy's a friend of the show. She's watching.
Manifest. Yeah. One day.
One day. Yes. Well,
I had one more thing. Sorry. Yeah. I think that also it comes from the way that you were raised and what privacy looked like when you were being raised, right? Like, because when you were saying like, oh, I want to keep some things private, the first thought I had is like, why do we have that? Like, what is it about privacy that is so important? And I think immediately I thought it's, for me, what my parents told me. Like, we keep that. It wasn't just the patriarchy and my father. It was like our family unit's identity as what is private and what is to be shared, right?
Yep, absolutely. And how we have the power to change that from generation to generation. Because like you with Henry, me with the girls, and Deja, I don't know if you have kids, but it's like,
not yet. One day soon, maybe.
One day, girl.
Manifest.
One day.
But you'll see when you have your own, it's like you start doing the things that your parents taught you, and then one day you go, wait a second. Yeah. I can decide all of this for myself and my children. Let me take a step back and decide what I want and not just like follow these like weird footprints that other people lay down for us. And that's a really empowering, freeing moment as a parent. So I hope that you get to experience one day.
Did you read Untamed by chance, Teresa?
No, I follow the author though, and I really love her. And I saw that you were reading it. I downloaded the audio that I still need to listen to.
Well, the hook that got me was an Audible ad on Instagram that got me to purchase the book and read it. And it said, the moment we become women as daughters is the moment that we, I don't want to say it wrong.
I've seen
it's just powerful. It's like walking away from your parents. Oh, it's trusting yourself to know that they raised a strong woman so you don't need to do it their way because they did their job and now you're doing it your way. Like it's that moment where you were like, I'm trusting you enough to know that you raised this woman right, so let this woman make the decisions that she needs to make for her family. And I was like, I'm done, dead, here's my credit card, like swipe.
Yeah. No, she dropped some really amazing gems on how to literally be, in her words, untamed. I call it unapologetic, but it's all the same thing, right? It's just like not giving a shit about what we've been taught and told and coming up with our own rules and our own ways of doing things and knowing that it's just as right? There's no right or wrong way. It's just your way of doing things. Yeah. The more as women we can like actually take that approach to everything that we do and not judge one another as moms and this and that, wives. It's just like, God, live your life. Yeah. Life. But speaking of other girlfriends and like letting each other live our lives, here's the question. Do you guys think you could be friends with somebody who has a very different political position than you do? Like, could you be friends with a woman who's like, I mean, what's wrong with Trump? Alex?
You want me to go first?
Yes.
Absolutely not. I'm at a point where I had a girlfriend call me the other day who always asked me for advice. Bless her soul, I don't know why, but she said, I had this friend and she was, posting a lot of stuff that she truly didn't think was racist, but there was like these undertones that were like, I was like, hey girl, this is kind of a problem. And she's like, she came back to me and she said she really wants to learn. And I was like, it's such a hard thing because you condemn people that are like that and they're like, okay, cool, teach me. And you're like, well, no, I'm not going to do that. Go fucking learn for, Yeah. At this point, no. The amount of pain he's inflicted and the fear of what's potentially next, especially in so many ways, I won't say especially, but one in particular is within the LGBT community. And the fact that it's even being talked about to take away those rights for marriage is an absolute non-starter. I have chills on my neck. No, if you're so concerned about money, because that's usually the reason why, right? Our taxes are so different if we vote Republican. It's like, you're going to die with no money, so who fucking cares? That's how
Yeah. Deja, what about you? Could you be friends with someone with different political views?
So what I previously had said was how I view politics, that's your values, that's who you are. So no, it's if you certain things are just no, because I feel like Trump encourages racism, even just looking at the debate. And I know Biden mentioning, his support of the African American community and things like that. And, Trump didn't even directly address that. So I feel like that leaves it right there, how I feel about him. And I just feel like just looking at his term and how many things have happened in terms of police brutality and the treatment of African Americans in this country, that's just a non-starter for me. So no. No, not at all.
Y'all know the answer. I hope for me too. It's a no. I can't do it. I used to tell people even before everyone knew. I grew up in New York, right? So I knew Trump as this guy who built buildings and had a lot of money. A white guy, a black girl from the Bronx. He was just a white guy with a lot of money and had buildings in New York. I didn't even know about outside New York stuff. And then now as an adult, this guy that was a staple in New York in my childhood is the person. I didn't think he was that person, right? Or that stupid even too. It's just a ridiculous combination of a human that we have, in charge. So you brought up the debates, Deja. Did you guys both watch the first presidential debate?
I did. Oh, I did.
Yeah.
And I was exhausted.
Yeah. Exhaustion is one. What were some of your takeaways, Deja? And then we'll go to Alex. Just in performance, what, if anything, the American people learned from the debate, and how, if there is still anyone on the fence about who they're voting for, how any of them might have walked away after watching it.
Some of my takeaways, I just feel one, just how Trump was acting during the debate, and not even really I just felt he spent most of his time trying to attack Joe Biden, not tackling the issues at hand or really addressing the question. It was more so okay, I'm just going to make you look bad, or I'm going to insult you. And his punchlines were pretty good. I'm not going to lie there. He does have good punchlines. But other than that, it's just this is who we have representing our country. And it's just this is you're more so concerned about getting in the last word and showing how intelligent you are in terms of making other people look bad, that I don't feel I couldn't even remember anything that he said that was answering the question directly. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I felt in terms of Joe Biden, just to be Biden, it was just getting hard to watch after a while, just because they were just going back and forth so much. It was just frustrating. Honestly, I didn't even watch the entire thing. Towards the end, I was just it's getting late. I'm going to bed. I have a no social media policy before I go to bed. I was just I don't want this on my mind as the last thing before I get into the bed. So I had to walk out of the room after a while. I was just exhausted watching it, honestly.
Yeah. Alex, what were your takeaways?
I went to sushi with my family. I didn't watch it.
Oh,
I it's just pure trash. It's like the most tragic comedy of the history of the world. I truly believe. I'm not trying to be like American centric, but like it's a tragic, theatrical. It's just, if there was two women up there, I don't care how dirty it got, I would be there every second of the way. But to see two very old white men, I just have no interest. It's like, I already know who I'm voting for, because I'm voting for, as my friend once said, the bus that's getting me to my final destination, but like, it's not my final destination. They are just the best bus that's driving me toward where I'm trying to go. You know, if it was up to like Pence and Kamala, I would probably watch it because I find her to be fascinating, and I think Pence is one scary. One thing I did want to note though is like, he's like was a Democrat his whole life. Like, I know we're not going to go into some Trump hole right now because we have better things to do with ourselves, but you know, there was that 1996 People magazine article where he's like, if I was ever to run for president, I'd run for Republicans because they're too dumb to know the difference. Yeah. Voted for Hillary forever. So I just think it's interesting because I do still believe in the Republican Party as a two-party system for America and the possibilities. I just wish they would have produced someone, as I wish with the Democrat Party, that there could have been a different production or people given to us, but I'm going to just stay on my side. I still believe in both parties. I will say that. The man that's been elected to the Republican Party, I almost don't hate him because I know that he is a puppet for a whole system and he's loving every second of it. But anyways, I don't know what weird rant I just went on, but I just think it's I couldn't watch it. I couldn't.
Yeah. Well, I watched it and I kind of feel the same way as Deja. It's like, it was a circus. It was embarrassing. It was, at some points, I almost cried, to be honest with you, when Trump tried to go in on Joe Biden's sons and his children. I felt
that was uncalled for. You don't talk about people.
It was ridiculous. I felt that one. The others, I'm sitting like honestly, if you know what it felt like, you guys, it felt like watching a reunion episode of like Real Housewives of like New Jersey or Atlanta. And poor Andy Cohen is like sitting there, like trying to figure out. And so like even the next day, the real Andy Cohen was like giving pointers, like, hey, you can mute their mics, you know, like, because he's used to sitting in the middle of.
Yeah, the moderator wasn't that great.
Yelling and screaming at each other. And Trump and Biden were Real Housewives of the Democrats and the Republicans. It was like literally that. And at some points it was like cringy and just.
That would be a great SNL skit, is the real Housewives of the White House. Like, that's what it was.
That's what it was. And even like Nene from Real Housewives of Atlanta the next day was like, I got to teach Joe Biden how to serve tea and read somebody, because if that's how Trump is coming for him, then he needs to learn from the bitches.
Yes, he had punchlines. Yes.
But it's sad because it's entertaining and we're talking about it this way, but this is the people who are supposed to be running our government and putting plans, laws, and ideas into place to make our lives and future generations happy, safe, healthy, and that's not what's going on, right?
No.
It's crazy.
No.
But that gets to my next point, in that as Americans, I would argue that we are the dumbest country as it pertains to knowing how our political system works, why it works the way it works, why it was even set up the way it was set up in the first place, and who it was built to actually benefit. Right? And the more you educate yourself on these things, because we're not learning this in school, the more I even looked into like, why aren't we learning this in school? Then I learned, depending on where you live in this country, you're learning something different in school. It's not like even school is something that's universally, okay, this is what, you know, the American history story is. Depending on where you live, parts of that have been completely removed or edited or changed to benefit the people who want to go down as the victors in history. So my question on that is, what is it that we can do, or that either of you are doing in your personal circles, to help get the folks around us just smarter about this process. You know, our friends, our parents, the people who have had the privilege of ignoring all of this for a long time, where that is no longer an option, you know, to ignore this process. What are you guys doing in your personal lives to help people get smarter? We'll start with Deja.
Well, in my personal life, I'm definitely just starting with like having conversation with friends. It's hard not to talk about, so I'm definitely starting there. I do have younger siblings, so one of my younger brothers is of voting age, so I'm always on him, making sure that he has his things in place. I have another brother that will eventually be 18 next year, so he won't make it for this election, but I'm definitely planning to like have that conversation with him to make sure he's voting. Just even with like some of my older family members, making sure like, okay, if you're not going to go to the polls, like making sure you're registering so that you can, you know, do your vote mail-in ballot and things like that. And then and posting on social media, I think that's a thing. I know like people will look at my content, so if I see something that, you know, I'm learning with people as well. I don't know everything, even though I do focused space and I have worked with like the NAACP and things like that. So it is something that I care about on a work level as well. But just posting on social media and spreading the word that way, and just letting people know like to be educated about certain things, because that's the beautiful part about social media now is like, because I think everybody's just so fed up, you're starting to see so much content about things that you didn't even know in relation to this process. So I think it's great. So that's pretty much what I've been doing, sharing on social media and just having like personal conversations with friends and family.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Alex?
I think that for a while, I was attending a lot of different like marches with my son, and I'd come back and, you know, or my partner would join me, and we would talk a lot about just the amount of love that was there, because I think it's just so easy and they want you to be afraid, right? Fear is what moves people, but so does love. And I know that's kind of cheesy, but I think everything we've been able to attend that was community focused, we felt so much love. It's so, I don't want to cry, but it makes me so sad, like how these protesters have been treated, and like just how many people have gone to jail who literally were not doing anything illegal. They were just simply peacefully protesting. So I think a big part of it has been trying to stay connected to my community in that way. I don't know, it just bothers me so much that like, you know, that like anybody would even just like show up to just, you know, fight, or be like young and like 18 and like go and fight to be around the community and like feel connected, and like, and then to just be like arrested or pepper sprayed. It's like, what are you doing? Like, so I try really not to like fall into the fear part of it, because to me, it's almost like not a choice. Like, why would I even go there? I'm still going to have to be on this earth. I still have to be a mother. I still have to like, you know, pay my rent no matter what. So, you know, I think the community aspect for me has been important in like my development and my intellectualism of like what's happening here, because I know that I have, as a white woman, a very certain privilege that's been given to me. So I think for me, it's been important to surround myself with my community so that I can understand about everyone's experiences and triggers that have happened to them that I didn't know, or so I think sharing in that way. San Diego's totally kind of blown me away, because coming from Chicago, you know, it was fight for your rights every damn day, and it like made me feel so alive. And then I came back here and I was really nervous about what it would be like, but it's been incredible to watch the amount of people from all different backgrounds come together. So I've invited my mom to stuff like that. My mom is a very, very, very staunch Democrat. We come from a family of Republicans. So it's been interesting. I was told not to bring it up at a family function, so I didn't. I think just to save the peace, unfortunately, I was that person.
Yeah. I mean,
it's so hard. They're like, don't not say something like, now's your chance, and you get there and it's like all of your uncles, for me anyways. And I'm like, fuck, I just don't want to fight. Like, I don't know. Leave it up to the old white guys to fight. I don't want to fight, you know?
Yeah. It's exhausting. Yeah. It is. And even for me, you know, coming from obviously a Black family, the Black community, and then also being very close in proximity to like the Christian community that I grew up in, that I never felt a part of anyway. Even as a child, I was very like aware that I was there, but I wasn't subscribing to it. So it's a constant fight, I feel, trying to educate folks who are hit the hardest in some cases by having people like Trump in office. But when they respond to you, to the logic that you're putting in front of them, like, here are the actual decisions that he's making, and here's how it actually negatively influences your life, your household, your money, your health. None of that seems to matter sometimes when, in my experience, when I'm talking to people, because they're focused on making abortions illegal, right? Or things in the Bible that coincide with some of the stuff that Trump is like repeating, because he knows that this is part of his base. And so he's trying to convince them that he's some like, you know, second coming of whatever, that he's going to take them into some space in biblical history that they are thinking is like coming. And it's like, no, that's not, he is playing you, but you can't, it's like, you can't tell someone, you can't have a conversation about how someone's faith isn't real, right? Or isn't a way to make a decision on who's president and who's not president, or senator, or in Congress, or your mayor, or whatever it is. So that's my personal struggle, where I don't know how to convince, like, you know, a family member who is Bible thumping and really this is their life, and they are staunchly against abortion, that is not an okay reason to continue to let this man stay in the White House, you know?
Well, I just saw that they were...
That comes with that too, because a lot of these people have made all of these decisions and had these choices in their history, in their past, that now all of a sudden is not okay for everyone else to have that same choice.
Right. It's incredible. But I did see, like, if you can think about, like, you know, wanting to get somebody to the polls to help, you know, Biden get elected, and it's not going to be your family. I recently was just reading an article about that those who are incarcerated just got released their ballots, and they don't know it because they're not going to advertise to those who are incarcerated, like, hey, you can vote now. But just this week, or maybe it was late last week, the ballots were released for them to be able to vote. So the word is spreading that if you know anyone that's incarcerated, to spread the word, because those votes alone, I mean, we have the highest incarceration rate in the world. So I think the best way to go there would be, like, if you can't help your own home and your own family, then it's to then move to these advocacy opportunities, whether it's like, I just signed up to get phone baking practice through the Human Rights Coalition. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'll call a few people, I'll get hung up on, but, you know, I think you have to turn to advocacy when you can't look to your own home, you know, in whatever way it is, whether it's emailing the governor or picking up the phone, or it's like, you know, finding out that, like, you know, 20,000 people in my own city are incarcerated and they can all vote, and that could swing the whole city. And like, how do you get the word out, the information out?
That is great advice, and a great way to, like, really make a difference. Even, like you said, bigger than your family, bigger than the people that you know. And I know of one organization, because my ad agency actually helped place some ads for them in the state of California, called Free the Vote California. And they do just that, Alex. It's basically encouraging the right for folks who have been released from jail to be able to have access to their ballots and vote. And we just placed some ads in these next few weeks leading up to the election, so that people become aware that this is a real thing that has potential to swing it in the right direction. So
the voter fraud is just, we could talk about that on a whole nother call. It's unbelievable.
So we'll wrap it up here. I did have a note to just, like, check in and see how we feel about celebrities and businesses and, like, corporations getting involved in the political conversation. Do you guys think that there's value in that? You know, like, celebrities coming out and talking about who they're voting for, why they're voting, encouraging people to vote, register to vote, and businesses and corporations having a stance. Like obviously business, I haven't seen a business besides a media outlet like, you know, the New York Times or somebody like saying, okay, this is our candidate, but like a business like mine or you guys or larger than us coming out saying we support this candidate. I wonder if we're heading in that direction. Now we have the celebrities, but what do you guys think about that? We'll start with Deja.
So I would say from a lens of I worked with some political organizations, and that is a strategy and from the bipartisan perspective. So in my experience, we've always had celebrities that have encouraged the youth to vote in general. That was what I specifically did with Young Gets It Done. It was a voting initiative in the form of a concert series to get the youth and college age students to vote. I wouldn't be surprised. I do see it trending that way because I can't remember who the celebrity was, but The Rock, I think, like made his first like endorsement, and he's never endorsed anyone. But I think we're just in a stage where everybody is fed up. So it's really important for us to push the needle and use whatever vehicle of influence that we have available or accessible to us to get people to understand of the state that we're in this country. Like it needs to be a change. So I do think that more celebrities will come out and directly say who they are in support of. I mean, Cardi B has done that. You know, definitely she's more like, you know, left wing than anything. So you've seen her like support, like, and you interviews with like Bernie Sanders and other candidates like that. So yeah, I think definitely that's the trend out. I wouldn't be surprised if I see other celebrities going in that direction as we get closer to election day.
Mm-hmm. Alex, what do you think?
Well, it reminded me of that. The Costco just pulled a cheese off of their store, out of their stores, because the owner of that cheese company had made like degrading remarks against BLM. And it was like so controversial because it was solely based on a political statement from the owner, not like the company's stance was like, we're into Trump or we're anti-BLM. I shouldn't put up peace signs for that. But the fact that the CEO of Costco pulled the cheese because the owner of the cheese company said something against BLM. And of course I was like, fuck yeah, that's so rad to use your power like that. But on the other side, I can also see it's just dividing our country more and more, but we don't really have a choice. It's like the Dems don't want to play dirty, but we motherfucking have to play dirty at this point. Like I saw somebody that said something about how, like, you know, they're going to be trying to really fight to reverse the marriage equality. Like that's a big deal that's coming up for Pence because, you know, Pence believes that being gay is a choice, and he believes in conversion therapy, which is the single scariest thing I could possibly fathom in my life. There's also a gay porn star that looks just like him, and I think it's the most epic. Anyway,
that's funny.
Isn't that great? That's so great. Yeah, I think it's an unnecessary evil. It sucks to be, you know, torn apart, ripped apart, but we were never really together. There were so many cracks in the system that anybody that thinks we're being torn apart clearly was never in, you know, feeling the crack from below. You know, they were at the nice little soft surface at the top. So I think that it's necessary. It is unfortunate, I believe, though. You know, it's like, I'm happy, like when she said the concert, I was like, yes, that's a great way to get people to vote. But at this point, with the president that we have, I can't imagine, you know, and like I still think it's so odd that Taylor Swift all of a sudden became super like pro-gay, and I'm like, really, bitch, you're like a little white country star. Like, I don't know. So I think, you know, you never know. I think for me, my hope is that there is some hidden Trump people that of course would never say they're going to vote for him because they were afraid of being judged. But my hope is that there's like a ton of people who are also just secret Dems, and they're just not saying anything, but they're going to vote that way. Yeah. So you really just don't know.
Right. Yeah. We have no idea. I think for me, I think the little tiny bit of power that I have in this world, I use it to encourage people to get smarter, right? Because if we just tell them what to do, it's like kids, right? Then yeah, that might work. If a lot of famous people and businesses who have power just say, vote for Joe Biden, that could probably work. But it doesn't solve the long-term problem of we're a country full of idiots, right? Yeah. And how do we get these people educated and smarter and part of the process so that we don't find ourselves in this same situation 4 years from now, 8 years from now, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But that being said, I'm still a human being. I'm a person, right? So if somebody or a client or someone I'm doing business with says something that is not like controversial, but truly offensive and really just flat out wrong and not factual, they will get corrected by me because that, and you know, and I'm okay with whatever repercussions that brings, right? Whether it's me personally or my businesses. And I think that's where that Costco situation falls in. It's like, okay, that might have made that CEO feel a certain way and he had the power to pull that cheese. And you know what? He's going to deal with whatever bad consequences come from that because it was a move that
and
was
guess
like,
what? Republicans are still going to motherfucking Costco.
Yeah.
Like, it's not stopping them. Where else are they going to go?
Exactly. And yeah, so, and Taylor Swift, just a side note, did you watch her documentary?
I hate her. I can't stand her. She's my least favorite person. Sorry.
Yeah. Did you?
No, I didn't. Yeah, okay. I'm not a Taylor Swift fan.
Yeah, I'm not either. I just
daughters though.
I'm a fan of content and, you know, documentaries also. Like, I'm a fan of real life, hence why I made PRGirl, the reality show. But I will say, I did end the documentary thinking, oh, here's what happened to Taylor. She was a child. She was an idiot, like the people we're talking about. She thought she knew what the real life was, and she was, you know, suffering from white girl privilege. And then in her exposure in the world and being the global artist that she is, she actually got exposed to real life. And she was like, oh, I should be vocal about this and how I feel. And, you know, then it went into the whole, like, kind of pity me because, like, all her racist white fans were, like, saying, like, horrible things to her, like, really mean stuff that caused her to, like, flee the scene for a little bit. But then I didn't feel bad for her, you know, because you're still Taylor Swift, so it's fine. Oh my God, Henry, it's so funny. One of my kids literally just knocked on the door. Come say hi.
So cute. Hi there.
Her boobies because
yes, hair.
Say hi.
Oh,
I'll cover you. Say
hi, Henry.
She's 5.
Yeah.
This is Isabel. Say hi.
Hi, Isabel. Nice to meet you.
Are you 3, Henry?
I'm 3 years old.
3 years old. Yes, you are, sir.
Hi,
yes.
Aww.
Say hi, Henry.
Oh.
She's like, anyway, I had so much fun talking to you guys about this. Like, I almost want to make this like a series where things we're not supposed to talk about. Have that be our jam. So let's wrap up. Deja, anything that you want to share with the audience, like that you and your agency are up to? You want us to follow you? Like, just drop everything.
Just follow me on Instagram, guys. That's where I'm most active. So I am Deja Monet. So DejaMonee. So I am Deja Monet. But yeah, that's it. Just follow me there to stay updated.
Awesome. Alex, anything new you want to drop on the people?
Yes, I'm super excited. Next week, I'm launching with my friend Gabrielle Pickens of Pickens Creative, who's from Chicago, was in the military, former veteran, and now lives in San Diego. And we're launching Hustlecraft's 2020 series. It's called Black Joy and Entrepreneurship, and she's interviewed, yours truly.
That's so cool. Congrats.
Yeah, so I was talking to her about just how tone deaf a lot of the interviews were feeling, and I just felt like we needed to shake it up, and she's like, let me produce this and we can kind of partner up. So I've been on the back end, which has been really nice, and she's interviewed about 8 different women from around the country to share their stories, and we're launching that next week, so I'm really excited.
Awesome. Yes. Yeah. When my episode comes out, obviously I'll push it so people can see it.
Yes, I actually have on my to-do list right in front of me. I have all of the content designed and I'm emailing it out to everyone tonight.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and Sir Henry, it was such a pleasure to talk to you guys this evening. I love this conversation. I hope it just inspires some more women to like have uncomfortable, hard conversations. and like allow our daughters and our sons to do the same. So
Absolutely.
you guys have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.